Blessings, blessings, blessings. We have officially stepped into 2025. Peace to you and grace from God, and peace to you. I am Rosalind Nicole, your brown skinned sister friend, and what better way to launch the Resilient You 222 experience than to do it on this day. Let me tell you guys, I am a strong advocate for well-being and everything that falls under well-being, emotionally, mentally, physically, but most importantly, spiritually. I am a certified life spiritual coach, and I also carry a master's in organizational leadership, primarily in training and development. But what I will say is, even at being a life and spiritual coach, what has gravitated my heart and the work is the unseen world, that unseen realm, that spiritual warfare. And so I am here truly as an advocate to just help dynamic people, dynamic women, men. If you find my content interesting, thumbs up to you. But that those people who really just want to break through their emotional struggles. There's so many things that we carry from childhood up into our adult years, trying to understand the whys of it all, repeating similar patterns, being stuck in certain mindsets. And this is the time to push through that. And unlike anyone else that I've really seen, I'm really committed to incorporating not only fundamental practices and techniques that we do use day to day in the real world, but also hit very hard on that spiritual side of the house. So you want to strengthen your emotional resiliency, you want to break through any of your challenges, seen and unseen, please keep watching, keep supporting, keep paying attention. Now, what better way to kick off the first segment in the new year than to ask you, what does starting your new year look like for you? What does starting your new year look like for you? Now listen, I know we are going crazy on the social media side about what it means to set your goals, not deal with the BS, anything that we dealt with in 2024 or prior that did not serve us. We don't want to bring none of that nonsense into 2025. I feel you on that. This is where we feel strong, we feel encouraged that we're going to start the new year and it's going to end better than maybe our 2024 year was. When I entered into 2024, I entered into a year of uncertainty because a couple of days after I brought in the new year, I had a very serious doctor's appointment scheduled regarding test results from my blood work. And I had to carry this uncertainty really since before Thanksgiving. So I didn't really welcome 2024 in the best way. And when I look back and reflect at my 2024 year, the word that I give it was test, because there were a lot of tests that I actually ended up going through. However, in coming out of all of those tests, I realized the root of it was the unseen. The root of it was the spiritual warfare. And so for me, as I enter into 2025, I am focused on spiritual maturity, and I hope that comes across in the information and the words of encouragement that I begin to share with you. I share that to also say that we all have themes. Many of us do come up with resolutions. We want to possibly shed some weight. We may need to gain some weight. We may want to start anew in a relationship. We may want to end a relationship. We may want to take a different path in our career. We may be fearful to quit what it is that we're doing. We may just be unhappy with where we're at. And wherever this message finds you at, hopefully it finds you in a place where you really are ready to make a shift in your life. But I want to plant some seeds for you before we begin to really make that shift, because I want to make that shift with you. All right? So these are the seeds that we must plant. Now, going back to a couple weeks in my studies and in my teachings and in my devotionals, I have been in the book of Genesis. And I think we've all been there. It doesn't have to be from a spiritual lens, but you could hear a quote. You could hear an affirmation. You could hear a statement. You could hear something in the Bible that just hit your spirit. And you're like, that one was for me. Okay, it could be in a positive way where you're like, yes, I needed to hear that. Or it could be on the opposite of that where it's like, ooh, that message right there was stepping all on my toes. And in the first 3 chapters of Genesis, there's 2 that I'll highlight where I was like, time to really understand what we always think we understand, but that we really don't understand. That's how are we living? How are we showing up in this world? So how are we living? How are we showing up in this world? So in Genesis chapter 3, it talks about the difference between the tree of life and the tree of knowledge of good and bad. Now, what's the story behind it? Everybody know. Yes, Eve bit into the apple and then passed it off to Adam, and he took a bite too. Okay? We all know that. And then what ends up happening is they get removed from the garden. And by us being removed from the garden, from the place of peace, sanctity, purity, and wisdom, we get. And the minute we got kicked out was when we now, as human beings, through our lineage, we're now placed into a position that we are going to rely on our own wisdom, and that is the wisdom of good and bad. Instead of living side by side cohesively with God and leaning only on His wisdom. This is where the trials begin, leaning on our own wisdom of good and bad. In reflection of my 2024 year, as much as I like new thought, as much as I want to stay connected to my spiritual awareness and understanding, as much as I try to evolve who I am as a being, I still came to the conclusion that I was leaning on my own understanding. How so? I was operating in my vision, what I thought and how I thought things should be. Yeah, we can create a vision board, but it's still images of what I think, right? And I'm sure, like many, we do that, we support that, but yet, and then by the end of the year, we are tallying up our experiences and we're placing them in buckets of good, bad, or indifferent based off of what we see. Our level of understanding, what we did, how we did it, and why we did it. So the first, this hits a little different in Genesis was the result of Eve and Adam. Eve goes first, yes ma'am. Eve and Adam biting into the apple. Because by them doing that, then we no longer are being fed off of the tree of life, but we are now feeding off of knowledge and with the knowledge of good and bad based off of our own level of wisdom. Okay. The second, this is where it's at, was Genesis 3:9. And this one is where it really hit a little differently for me, because now God is looking for Adam. And God is like, Adam, I don't see you. I don't see you in the garden. And Adam says, I heard a sound of you in the garden, and I was afraid. Now, Adam and Eve been in the garden kicking it with God this entire time, and now was like, I bit into this apple. I did something I was not supposed to do. I got sidetracked on my dreams. I didn't keep my word and what I said I was going to do. And now that I have done that, I am afraid. I am moving in fear. Now, the kicker to this, in me hearing this story, is that Adam then goes in to justify his actions, justify the fears that he has. Oh, I am naked. Oh, I heard a sound of you in the garden and I was afraid. It becomes the I. How many times, people, have we fell into a situation and then we begin to justify our behavior? Now, I am no way a Bible scholar. I am walking in the Word of God just like every other being that holds dear and near to their faith with righteousness and integrity. But what I will say is, oftentimes, guys, we do justify when things don't work out, why they don't work out. Because we're leaning on our understanding of what we think is good, bad, or I would say even indifferent. So my word of empowerment or an encouragement to you in this moment, especially as we move into the new year, we're feeling good about ourselves. We're like, hey, new year, new you. No new friends. Whatever the motto is that you're carrying, it's going to be about me. Whatever that is that you're carrying, to move in conviction of in the Word of God. All right? So, should you have desires and hopes for the heart that you want to accomplish? Yes. But you should also know that your purpose is already written. The seed is already planted inside of you. God has already specifically designated you for something wonderful. It is just up to you through conviction that you understand what that purpose is and that you walk in that purpose with integrity. Do not get sidetracked and then justify the reason why you change directions. Whatever seed was sown into you, nourish that seed all the way through. Will it be challenging sometimes? Yes, indeed it will. But as you follow the words for yourself, you also begin to brighten that guiding light, which will illuminate your path. And as part of that guiding light, I would like to offer to you to join me in the teachings of Dr. Miles Monroe, as I will be kicking off a 28-day challenge focused on purpose and power. Let's not be like Adam and become afraid. Let's not be like Eve and bite into deception. This is the year of revelation, and we are like onions. And as we peel back the layers of the things we have internalized within our lives, we will get closer to understanding, honoring, and accepting the purpose in which God has designed in your life. So again, join me. Join me as I go through the teachings of Dr. Miles Monroe, and we're going to talk about purpose and power. I look forward to you tuning in. I really do. Peace to you and grace from God. Again, this is your girl, Rosalind Nicole, your brown-skinned sister friend, aka Butterfly Goddess. Peace to you, grace from God, grace to you, and peace from God.